Welcome to the Living Well Church podcast, and thanks for tuning in today. Our mission as a church is to help people find faith in Jesus and a life of purpose and hope. You're about to watch a message that will challenge you, inspire you, encourage you, and most of all, point you to Jesus and the life of purpose and hope He has planned for you. So lean in and enjoy, and let God speak into your life.
It is great to be back. I came here in June last year, and you guys have been busy. You've moved house. There's new babies. People have been married. Like, this is exciting. I mean, Joe's even better looking than he was last time I was here. Marriage agrees with you, man. That's great. So I'm just stoked to be back. We've been pretty busy in Liverpool. We've had another child, which is awesome. I would have loved to have brought her today, but my wife said I'm not traveling with two kids, one being 8 weeks old. So I was like, all right. And I tore my meniscus since I last saw you, which is a ligament in the knee, attempting to be young. But it was really cool because I said to the guy who fell on my knee, if you break the pastor's knee at basketball training, you got to come to church. And he came to church. He actually took me seriously. And then the next week, he brought another lad from another basketball team. So it's been really exciting. But I'm on a time limit this morning. And I wasn't planning on saying much about Liverpool. So I had to drop a couple of things in because Marcus said I would. But I'm on a strict time limit. Because if we go too long, a whole congregation of people just turn up and start rushing us. So we're gonna stick to a time limit. As Marcus said, you guys are a church that's supporting us in Liverpool and partnering with us. So I kind of felt like the best thing I could do this morning is come and explain why I am the way I am. Just share a bit of a story on how we got to be the kind of people that would leave Australia and relocate to Liverpool. So I'm going to share a bit of a personal story of something we had to battle through. But in my mind, it's like giving you guys a gift. Sharing this story is like giving a gift to you. Because it's personal, and I'm Australian, so I'll probably just say it as it is. So it's just like I'm Australian. That's just how it is. So, but yeah, I want to share that. But I also want to work through a passage of the Bible. What I want to look at this morning is the battle our hearts face when it comes to fear and faith. But I also want to talk about pain this morning. I think that if fear finds a hold in our heart, it can push faith out. But I don't believe that pain pushes faith out. I believe that we can still have faith while processing pain. So I want to share our journey through that as well. So that's where we're going to go this morning, and I'm going to start the timer now, and I'm going to be very conscious of it. But I'm Australian, so we can talk fast, so it's fine. All right, so I'm going to go to Matthew 14. We're not going to have any slides today. How great was worship? That was awesome. Like, it was like at home when you're singing and you're really jacked up when a lyric you know comes on. You're like, yeah! And then you're like, blah, 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 blah. And then the one you know, and it's like, anthem! I was like that in the front, except the last song. I was like, I had no idea that song existed. So I was like, blah, 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 pray in tongues, look spiritual. It was awesome. All right, I'm feeling good now. So I want to go to a passage in Matthew. It's one we know. The disciples are on a boat. Peter walks on water. It's all happening. It's awesome. What's just happened is Jesus fed 5,000 people. It was miraculous. It was awesome. People are celebrating. The crowds want to take Jesus by force and make him king. The disciples have got caught up in this. They see it as a moment of triumph, but Jesus sees it as a moment of crisis. So he hurries the disciples onto a boat, and he goes up alone on a mountain to pray, which he only does in times of crisis. So we start with like a confusion of perspectives. But anyway, we're going to pick up with the disciples on a boat. It said, later that night, Jesus was alone praying, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. So remember this morning we're talking about what the battle for our heart, fear or faith. It's very obvious what's in the disciples' heart in this moment. They're in a boat. They probably think they're about to die. And when Jesus comes walking towards them on water, they don't see Jesus. They see the worst case scenario. It's significant it says they saw a ghost because the Jewish people were very superstitious, and that's what these disciples are. They're a bunch of Jews at this point. And the Jews believed an appearance of a spirit at night means impending doom. So basically, they already think they're going to die. And instead of seeing Jesus walking towards them on water, they see the justification of their fears. They see something that will only make their fears bigger. They see proof, I was right, we are going to die. You need to understand why that's important, because what's on our heart determines what we see. Fear binds our eyes for the things of faith. Fear blinds us to what Jesus is doing. So we see at the very start of this passage, and this whole passage is this like movement between fear, faith. And that's what I want to get at and just try to point out each time why fear is in their heart. Their circumstances has determined what's in their heart at this point. And I just think it's really worth pointing out that in that moment of fear, they miss Jesus. Now we can excuse them. They've never seen Jesus walk on water and all of that, but they saw the worst case scenario. So, we'll progress because Jesus immediately settles them and says, take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. So 11 guys now sit in the boat and go, all right, the fear's coming out now, the faith's going in, it's Jesus, let's relax. We're good, right? The important thing here is Jesus is physically with them at this point. And so this moment, he has to prepare them for the time when he's gone and he's not going to be with them anymore. This moment, this experience on the boat with him away and coming to them is helping him to understand that although he's not there, he's not unaware. They need to increase their capacity beyond having to physically have Jesus there. But I said 11 guys sat in the boat. This is where some of my favorite moments come. Because what happens is Peter says, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. Jesus said, come. It's exciting, right? Like I was a pastor in Australia of a bigger church, and now I'm a pastor of a smaller church. We're starting out in Liverpool. It doesn't matter. What matters is I want the people in my congregation to get crazy, bold God ideas like this. You know, I want that. That's exciting. Peter's like, there's Jesus on water. I could do that. That's great. I want us to have that attitude and that heart. That's awesome. But there's also something that happens here that's important, an important part of the process. Because Peter says, if it's you. We can get a lot of crazy God, bold ideas. Sometimes it's too much coffee. Sometimes that dream is not a God dream. It's the pizza you ate at midnight. I'll be doing that next week because that's when the Super Bowl starts. So I think it's important before we leap out of the boat, we follow this little moment that Peter has where he says, Lord, if it's you. Yeah? So I think that's a real good thing to notice then. Lord, if it's you. If we're going to get out of the boat, if we're going to get into the unknown, just wait, pause 1 minute. If it's you. We'll get back to that in a minute. Because what's exciting is Peter jumps out of the boat and shows us this amazing example of faith, isn't it? Like out of 12 guys, he's the one on the water. This is amazing. This is exciting. He's taking Jesus at his word. But this is why we love Peter. Because in that very same moment, he shows us an incredible livable example because he goes from super faithful to incredibly human in moments. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. When he saw the wind, he was, what's that word again? Afraid, and began to sink. Do we notice when fear pushed faith out of his heart? When he noticed his circumstances. When he got distracted by the things around him, and he took his eyes off Jesus. For him to notice, so he gets out of the boat, he's walking on water, he's staring at Jesus. For him to notice the winds and the waves, he has to go and look away. And when he notices his circumstances, fear fills his heart and he begins to sink. We catch that? So when we start to notice the things around us and take our eyes off Jesus, it affects what's in our heart. And it's not just noticing our circumstances, because sometimes it does feel like there's a storm around us. Sometimes it does feel like we're sinking. But sometimes what we do is sometimes we try to understand our situation. We try to understand our situation. We try to understand the things of God. We try to understand why this is happening. Like, that is never a thought process that will ever help us out trying to go, let's figure this out. I mean, God is God. He's got it figured out. If we try to figure it out, we're trying to be God. It doesn't make sense. I live by a hissy fit rule, which you're going to understand when I explain this story. This is my rule for life and faith. It's the hissy fit rule. I learned a long time ago that God makes more sense in retrospect. Does anyone else feel that? Like, sometimes we look back and we're like, that's what you were doing. Oh, I didn't think you cared. And it's like an awesome moment. So if I'm going through it right now and I don't understand and it's hard and I have a hissy fit, is that something that translates to this? Yeah, hissy fit, we're good, yeah? If I have a hissy fit now, that means 5 years from now when I look back, it'll be like, oh. So it's the hissy fit rule. You're living for that revelation 5 years from now so you can go, woohoo, without the, oh. It's the hissy fit rule. Anyway, just want to share real quick about a time that we took our eyes off Jesus and it affected what was in our heart. My wife and I, she's not here. She will come down one of these times. She does exist. She's real, I promise. We've been married almost 12 years, which is very exciting. You know what I like about when people get married? It's like, oh, now what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to do life moving forward? So as a pastor, I always make sure when I do pre-marriage counseling, we talk about what's after the wedding. Like, are you guys going to have jobs? Are you planning children? Like, because sometimes that's not talked about. And then you get married and the wife's like, let's have kids. And the husband's like, are you nuts? So thankfully, this was a topic of conversation for us because my parents got married, waited 5 years, got to know each other, and made the real responsible choice to have 2 kids. But her parents got married at 19, had 5 kids before they sneezed because they felt they had to repopulate the earth. So, like, she's like, we're going to get married and have kids. I'm like, I'm 24, you're 19. We're not doing that. Let's enjoy life, get to know each other. So we agreed to meet in the middle and wait about 2.5 years so I could finish my bachelor degree. So we did that. And I got to say, those 2.5 years were probably pretty painful for her because I think she literally just wanted to start having an army of kids. And I'm no interest in repopulating the earth. So we waited 2.5 years and I pretended to be ready and we got all excited. We're going to go on a 12-week holiday around the world because I've always lived around the world. I spent 18 to 21 living in Sheffield. That's where I got saved. I've always lived around the world. And so I wanted my wife to see that before we settled down. And so we had a 12-week trip and the 2.5 years had been, so we romantically started to daydream about a child named London or Paris. Whitfield's a pretty good name, but we didn't come past here. Worthing, we didn't, just played board games in Liverpool. Anyway, the trip came and went, no baby. But that's all right, because we came back to Australia and we kept trying. And I was really excited about coming home from work like a romantic comedy one day and her showing me something she peed on and like, I'm not want to touch it. And that's how I find out. And it didn't happen. And then, and this is where I'm just Australian and brutally honest, like something would be late a day or a week and we'd start naming the child and painting the nursery and then something would come and it'd be like we lost a baby. And then a year went and then a year and a half went. And there was no baby. And it wasn't about being ready or not anymore. It was about how much it sucked. And so we went to the doctor and the doctor's like, no. It can take 2 years for young, healthy people to do this naturally. So, come back in a month or so and then we'll do tests. And came back and it was time to do tests. And they said, we're going to test your wife first. That's generally where the problems are. And so we went for all the tests. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office, and I love my doctor. He's a Christian man. And in the small time my wife and I had been married, we'd been through cancer scares, and she'd had Graves' disease. So we had already gone through it with this doctor. And he looks at us, and he's like, your wife is not only fertile, she's overly fertile. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever for her not to be pregnant right now. I'm like, no reason? I can think of a reason. I know where this is going. And the doctor's like, we're going to test you next. I'm like, do we need to? I don't think we do. I think we figured this one out, right? Anyway, I got tested just before Christmas, which sucks because it means you got to wait for results. And then just how it happens, you know how it happens. You're out to dinner with your parents and then the doctor calls with the results and everyone knows you're waiting for a call. So now you're at the dinner table and when your parents get to a certain age, they take you to much quieter restaurants. Everyone's staring at me and my doctor's going through the results. And anyway, so the bottom line is I'm 98.5% infertile. I have 1.5% chance of having a child naturally. My doctor, who's amazing and a Christian, he said it would need to be miraculous. Then we went and saw an atheist IVF person, and he said it would have to be miraculous for IVF to work. I'm like, well, that's got me worried if the atheist is believing in a miracle. Like, how bad am I? 98.5% infertile. See, the worst question you can ask is why? How'd that happen? And doctor's like, well, research, like, you're a freak occurrence. Like, this has only ever happened in people who worked in high-level chemical factories. I was like, well, before I was a pastor, I worked with violent young people, and they were on high-level chemicals. But apparently, that doesn't count. So there's absolutely no reason whatsoever. I mean, my mum's a conspiracy theorist. She's like, I swear there was a chemical fire near your primary school, and a cloud came over. And I'm like, well, then that means I've been screwed up for longer than I thought. So it was primary school, but yeah, no reason whatsoever. 98.5% infertile. So that's how we started 2012. How was yours? My wife didn't take it well because her whole life revolved around the concept of starting a family and being a mum. And so she went through her own grief, and I did my best to be there with her, but I got to be completely honest. I went through stages of trying to figure out, am I even still a man? Like, this is what I thought a man was supposed to offer his wife. Am I supposed to provide family? And what I learned about this journey is it doesn't matter whether it's infertility or it's other forms of pain that we go through. It's like an onion. When you feel like you're getting to the top of whatever it is that's hurting you, it's like a layer peels off and it's like, oh, new pain, great. New things to process. So yeah, I just wiped the first 6 months of 2012 off the map. That was just, because it wasn't just finding out that news, it was that news on top of the years we had already been trying. So it was already pain and grief. Anyway, I had this dream around July 2012, very vivid dream, woke up in a hot sweat, and I was holding a little blonde boy, and I was calling him Elijah. Vivid dream, holding a little blonde boy and calling him Elijah. I felt like this was a God dream, like this is my son, I'm seeing my son, which is completely weird because Elijah's not a location. And I'm a brunette, my wife's a brunette. So what's the blonde all about? I was born with red curly hair, but my parents being spiritual prayed it away. It was fantastic. I once had a redhead yell at me from the congregation when I said that. I felt like it was a God dream, but I was so broken and my wife was so broken, I kept it to myself, didn't say a word. I didn't want to deal with it. Like if it was a God dream, I just didn't want a bar of it at that point. I don't know how long after, whether it was a week or 2 weeks or whatever, but basically my wife woke me up in the middle of the night, not long after, and she's like, I had a dream. I was like, tell me in the morning. It'd be great. But she's like, I dreamt I was holding a little blonde boy and I was calling him Elijah. I think God was showing me my miraculous son. And I confessed I had that same dream. And we felt like it was God making a promise, showing us something. But we were like, if this is God, remember the whole if it's you, it's going to be confirmed from outside of this relationship. So we're not going to tell anyone. Not long after, my mum, who's a Church of England vicar, bless her, she's like the vicar of Dibley. It's just full on. I love her. She calls and she's like, I've been dreaming of a little blonde grandson running around in my backyard. And the prayer team, which is a bunch of old ladies that call themselves our auntie, they've been getting the name Elijah, which means God will increase. And so Rach and I, September 2012, believed without a doubt that God had promised us a miraculous child. I didn't even do the maths. I'm like, we're going to have a baby by Christmas. This is awesome. Get the nursery paint out again. This is great. And then a year passed. No baby. Then another year passed. No baby. Then we're in another year and still no baby. And see, the thing is, like, it's one thing to get such a powerful promise like that. It's another thing to actually deal with the space in between. Up until that point, God had said things to us and it happened straight away. We'd never dealt with that space in between. And then after 2 years of this, so like of this, on top of all the other years of the rest, people started coming to us and saying, Pastor, I've got a word for you. I'm like, great. And they're like, it's time to focus on family. The same word from like 10 different people. It's time to focus on family. I'm like, what do you think we're doing? Playing Jenga? We've only focused on family for 6 years. Like, what more can we do to focus on family? And they're like, it's time to focus on family. And then the prayer warriors, the aunties, kept sending us letters with pictures they had drawn in prayer of 2 hands holding an embryo and breathing life. And I said to Rach, the only thing we haven't looked into and tried is IVF. And this is one of those hissy fit moments, because I'm like, if God's made a promise, he doesn't need lab coats. He doesn't need people in a factory. And, and I had a bit of a hissy fit. But anyway, we processed it and we felt like God was sending us down that path, and we didn't have to understand it. We just had to trust, even though that path's miraculous as well. So we went down that path, and I'd been a pastor up until that point of our marriage, so we'd learned to live off my wife's wage and my peanuts. And then I got a full-time job as campus director of the Bible college between churches. So we had 2 full-time wages for the first time in marriage. So we're like, that's all right, we'll live off yours and we'll put mine towards IVF. Because in Australia, IVF is $12,000, so £6,500 for the first attempt, and then $5,000 for every attempt that's created from the first attempt afterwards. So it's not cheap. But that's all right, because God made that promise in 2012, and now God's given us this word, so it's going to happen first go, right? So we went into IVF the beginning of 2015, all excited, first attempt. We're that couple that are the worst case scenario. So when they say there's very little chance of failure except you could fail this badly, we're the this badly. We spent $12,000 and $12,000, I'm so used to saying pounds, and got absolutely nowhere. Nothing. And it's not a pleasant journey for my wife. And we're like, that's okay, let's go again. It's like we're at the tables at Vegas and someone needs to pull us away. And we're like, let's go again, roll in, all in. Second time, nothing. Like, are you kidding me? And I blew out my back that year, which meant I couldn't process any of this with gym or basketball. They told me to swim. Swimming's stupid. Like, you're just floating around like, yeah, I'm trying to lose weight. I want to swim. Hey, everyone, look how much I've got to lose. No. So it was a really bad year. Anyway, we tried one more time, and during it, there was a mistake made which caused my wife to be in a lot of pain and in hospital for a while. Now, we had, from that third time, 3 opportunities moving forward, 3 opportunities for life. But we couldn't see it because of what had happened with Rachel. Before, you guys are all aware of like those great Pentecostal Australian churches like Hillsong and all that. Before there was Hillsong, before any of them, there was Paradise. Paradise was the Pentecostal mothership in Australia. That's where my wife comes from, Paradise. She was born and given skinny jeans as like baptism. She's always had this big faith that eclipsed mine. She comes to me in the lounge room after all these years, all of this, regardless of the fact that we've had 3 opportunities for life. She comes to me in the lounge room and she says, as broken as I've ever seen her, I'm done with God. I'm done with God. And I got to tell you, I was pretty done with God at that point as well in the way I felt. But I looked at her and I was like, you mean this, but you don't mean this. That's what I felt. And like, I want to tell you how imperfect I am. This is what talked me off the ledge and saying, like, every part of me wanted to go, yes, so am I, done. But I thought, really imperfect in my head, I've been doing ministry for more than 10 years. I could have been making more money doing anything else. It'd be dumb to throw 10 years down the drain. That's what I grabbed onto in that moment. That's how super spiritual I am. Thank you. But I knew we couldn't be done with God, but we had to be done with this and how we were feeling and how we were attempting to deal with it. And so we're armchair people. If I walk into a cafe and there's an armchair and no one's sitting in it, that's my day done. Like, I don't care. And so we would have our God time in armchairs. And so I said to Rach, we're not going to talk about this for a week, but we're going to our armchairs every morning. We're not going to do our Bible. We're not going to do our devotionals. But for the next 7 days in our own time with God, we're going to get it out. We're going to tell him how hurt we are. We're going to tell him how broken we are. We're going to scream. We're going to yell. We're going to make sure he knows we're angry. Kicking's okay. Throwing things okay. Whatever it takes. But there's no point having a relationship with Jesus if he only gets me in the good times. If it's going to be a relationship, if it's going to be intimate, he's got to get all of this as well because it's not doing me any good in here. So for 7 days, we pulled. And if there was still more, we pulled. And we kept pulling and pulling until it was all out. Because you can have faith through pain as long as you're willing to be allowed to process that pain. Because what I remembered in that situation is, I remembered Martha and Mary when Lazarus died. I remember that Jesus is a God that goes to Martha and pretty much says, have more faith. I'm about to raise your brother. And he picks her up and he does the faith march with her, which after 7 years of infertility, I was really tired of people looking at me and always saying the same thing. Have more faith, pastor. Oh yeah, because that's what I need right now. How about you just stop and weep with me for a second? That'd be really helpful. Speak to my pain, not the miracle. And so Jesus walks a little further, same situation, same family, and he sees Mary broken down in tears. He doesn't pull her up and say, have more faith. The problem's literally 5 minutes from a solution. He stops and he weeps with her. And that's the depth and degree of our Savior. He doesn't always pull us up and say, pull your socks up, get over it. He sometimes weeps with us and speaks to our pain. So we need to be better at speaking to pain to help people process through to faith. And I learned that there. And it was only once we pulled it all out, which actually shifted what was on our heart, because our heart had been crippled by fear. So once we pulled it out and put the faith back in the heart, we realized the biggest mistake we had been making since 2012 is the minute God made us that promise and we believed in the miracle and the promise became the Lord we were serving. Since 2012, every bit of our being had been about living, worshiping, and serving a promise of a child. That's not Jesus. We weren't following Jesus anymore. We were marching towards the promise. Our whole relationship with Jesus was dependent on him giving us a child. That doesn't work because we don't always get the children. We don't always find the partner. We're not always healed from the sickness. Sometimes it's hard. And so we can't have a conditional relationship with the Lord. That was embarrassing because from 2012 until that moment, I had pastored a church. So as a church pastor, I had been serving something other than Jesus. We had to put it all down again. Everything had to be let go. We had to have him be our Lord again, which meant we had to get rid of dreams of children. We had to get rid of dreams of promises, and we had to follow Jesus regardless. To come back. So the thing I'm grateful for is it helped me learn more about pain and faith than I ever had. So like now when people sit in front of me and actually talk to me about pain, I'm not quick to go, more faith, I'm believing with you. I'm okay to cry with people these days. You know, I'm not going to like chick flicks, but is it all right, Joe? Did I cry? Is that okay? Oh, phew. He's my measure of manhood. So if he says it's all right. Now, look, you guys know I have a son called Elijah, and you know I have a daughter called Ollie Bell, and both are miracles. But like, I don't want to share this story and make it about the miracle because, as I said, it doesn't happen in every situation. The story is about fighting for what's in our heart and learning to process pain as part of our relationship with God. Learning to speak to the pain, learning to lean into Jesus when it's really hard. Learning that a real relationship is about giving the real amount of you. Let's get back to this passage because I got 4.5 minutes and I just want to mention 2 things to finish because I'm tired of talking about myself. Matthew 14 is the second time in the book of Matthew that there's been a group of disciples in a boat in a storm. Now, either Matthew just writes and is incredibly forgetful, or there's a reason he repeats this. In the first story in Matthew 8, it says, "Then he got into the boat and his disciples followed him. Suddenly, a big storm came on the lake so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, 'Lord, save us, we're going to drown.' He replied, 'You have little faith, why are you so,' that word again, afraid? Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, 'What kind of man is this, even when the winds and waves obey him?'" That last bit's important. They survived the storm with Jesus. He performed the miraculous in front of them. He saved them. And they said, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and waves obey him." All right, now go back to the passage we were in. Matthew 14 saves them. Peter walks on water. We're all back in the boat. And they say, when Peter and Jesus climbed back into the boat and the storm died down, then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." In the first storm, he became their Savior. But in the second storm, he became their Lord. It's the first time they worshipped him as the Son of God. So first storm, who is he? Second storm, truly you are the Son of God. And they worshipped him. sometimes really changing who Jesus is in our life and the position he holds is just pushing through. It's pushing through the storms. It's going through stuff. See, if we ever think we're going to get saved and it's smooth sailing ahead, we just got the wrong idea of Christianity whatsoever. Yeah, sometimes the purest water is the water at the bottom of the waterfalls that's had its butt kicked by the rocks. You know? Sometimes it takes multiple storms to go from who is he to worshiping someone as your Lord and Savior. Now, what we need to understand, remember, is fear looks for the worst. Fear focuses on its circumstances. Fear needs reason, and fear needs instruction. But faith requires eyes on Jesus, which we learned. Faith requires taking Jesus at the word, and faith requires movement. Because there's one bit in this passage I want to finish with that we skipped over. It's my favorite bit, and we all just skip over it. Like maybe you thought about it, but like I think we skip over it because it says, Lord, if it's you, ask me to come. And then Jesus says, one word. He says, come. That's it. Like, no one's walked on water to that point that we know of. Like, this is like the first time. It's like you saying, it's like if I was going to say, hey man, if it's you, let me come up and play the guitar with you. And you're like, yeah, cool. I don't even know how to hold a guitar. So like Jesus is like, come. He's not like, do you miss the bit where he's like, Peter, you've not walked on water before, so you're going to want to turn around and back out of the boats, 1 foot at a time, make sure you're real stable. Then the other one, once you've got your balance, let go of the boat, turn around, eyes on me, it'll be okay. You notice that Jesus gives no instruction whatsoever. He's expecting a grown man to get out of a boat and walk on water, which isn't supposed to be possible, without any instructions in how. That kind of faith. But then you know, like some of you are like, I don't need instructions as long as he gives me a reason. Like tells me why this is going to be good for me, why this is going to help me, why this is contributing to something else. Well, he doesn't do that either. He also doesn't explain how it's going to help you fulfill your great calling you have in your head that you think you have for your life. He doesn't explain the bigger picture. He doesn't even tell you you're going to survive walking on water. He gives you no instructions, no reason, no bigger picture, no justification and calling, nothing. He just says, come. Peter had to get out of the boat with nothing else except the knowledge that there's Jesus, and he said, come. He had to have the kind of faith that took Jesus at his word and nothing else. And the most encouraging thing about it is he was able to quickly have that amount of faith after moments before thinking he was going to die because there was a ghost on the water. We shouldn't feel guilty about fear being on our heart because we see time and time again that when it's dealt with, we can be very faithful very quickly. It's about relationship and checking ourselves. I just think today I wanted to finish with that thought of how many of ourselves are holding ourselves back because we're wanting more from God. We've already done the whole if it's you, and we know it's him. So that's the good bit. I'm okay with that bit. But we're still sitting here because maybe we're waiting for instructions. Maybe we're waiting for reasons. Maybe we're waiting for more information. How many of us are paused and held in this moment because we're waiting for something that by the look of it, according to this moment, might not come? Because Jesus doesn't provide a calculated faith that allows us to get all our ducks in a row. So, it's a long story how we got to Liverpool. It's a long story what we're doing in Liverpool. But the reason we were able to answer that call was because of the 10-year journey we went through when it comes to infertility. And it's not because we did any amazing faithful things. It's because I was standing before infertility and I'm still standing now. I loved Jesus before infertility and I still love Jesus now. That's all it is. And so if you can get through stuff, you can get through the next stuff. So some of us need to answer the call to come. Some of us need to come because they need to embrace that pain and that hurt that they haven't actually known how to deal with, or they've been trying to bury it down and put on the whole I'm awesome for God face. It's okay, you don't have to be. You don't have to be awesome for God if you're not, because you're not awesome for God if you're not. Like, it's okay to be going through pain and hurt because we live in this world. It's painful and it's hurtful. So bring it out, process it. Let some people weep with you. Some of you need to confront that and stop feeling the pressure to pretend like everything's okay. It's all right if it's not. Others need to come because I need to step up to that thing you've been calling me to that I've been sitting on, waiting for more. So we're going to play a worship song to finish because I thought it was probably better to play a worship song before we go to fellowship, just because, if we're feeling any kind of emotion about anything that's said this morning, we probably don't want to jump out and go, coffee, muffins, hi, people. I mean, I'm an introvert. I struggle with that each week, whether someone said something sad or not. I'm more like, toilet, hello, bye. Oh, you remember me from last time? Good, yeah. I met 300 people at once. No, I'm really awkward with people. So if you do say hi to me, just expect that I'm going to talk awkwardly for like 40 minutes. Just like the last 40 minutes. So we're going to play a worship song. We pre-planned this, sort of, with these amazing, powerful slides. But I think we should just stand and be in a moment of worship. And if you're looking for more than that, if you're looking for some prayer, we'll be up the front and we'll do that with you. So let me just pray and then we'll get into worship. Dear Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Despite everything that's going wrong, that doesn't matter because you're still here, Lord. So I just pray that we can move beyond all the distractions, all the circumstances, and just be people that embrace the things that are going on inside of us, the things that are going on around us, Lord. Be the kind of people that can take you at your word, Lord Jesus, and push fear out of our heart and faith back in, Lord Jesus. So I pray that we're able to take the faith steps that we haven't taken. I pray we're able to be honest about the pain we're feeling. I pray that we've got the strength to deal with that pain and know that we can deal with it with you. Because as much as you're a Jesus that tells us to pull up our socks, you're also a Jesus that weeps with us when that's required. So we give this morning to you, give this time to you. In your name we pray. Amen.